Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. James here as ever for today's video all about how to pass your upcoming ACCA PM, that's also the F5 exam on performance management. In today's video I'm going to take you through my top tips that I'd be implementing if I had to pass the PM exam tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever it may be. These are my insights from my experience that I want to share with you today, so make sure you've got a pen and paper, and if this is the first time you've ever clicked on one of my videos, hello, my name is James, I'm an ACCA qualified member from the UK, and on my channel I help out ACCA, accounting students and professionals around the world pass their exams and sharing my insights. So if that is of interest to you, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any of my other videos, which as well we'll be talking about in today's video as well. But the other key thing I do on my channel is I always dedicate all my videos to my loyal subscribers, and today is no different because, as you can see down here, Caroline, thank you so much for your comment, and if you've got any questions like Caroline, leave me one below. I answer them all, as you can see. I mean, 50 minutes on this one I responded in. So please make a video on how to pass the F5 PM exam for September attempt with the resources. Well, Caroline, it's mid-August now here. I'll make sure it gets uploaded for you in time. So don't worry, you got this. It's all right. So if you're not already, get yourself comfy, pen and paper, cup of tea, whatever it would work best for you to get these down. I'm also going to give a shout out to Joe as well. I know you'll be watching this, Joe. Super keen. It's all right. He's got his PM exam, everyone, coming up. He got in touch with me. So don't worry, Joe. It's also dedicated to you. And as I said, make sure you give the video as well a massive like and thumbs up so more accounting and ACCA students can see these videos. I really appreciate it and all of your support for the channel. So thank you so much. So let's rock and roll and get stuck into some of the key strategies that I'd be implementing and the top tips. Because number one, first of all, is the exam time strategy. Okay, so what would I be doing if I had to sit the exam on my computer-based exam that this is actually applied for? But again, if you're taking maybe a sort of paper-based exam, all the tips and tricks that we're going through in today's video will apply to you as well. You just maybe need to adjust the timings accordingly. But again, check on ACCA's website for that. The ball is in your court. But today's recording is all about if you're doing the computer-based exam, like the majority of ACCA students. And in that exam, you've got 3 hours, 180 minutes, and 10 minutes reading time at the start of the exam. Now that is to go through the actual instructions of the computer-based exam. It doesn't mean that you can actually go through, have a look at the requirements and the scenario. So just to be aware of with that. It's broken down the exam into 3 sections on here for our exam time strategy that we're going to have to navigate. Section A, we've got 15 objective test questions, all 2 marks each. So that is 30 marks there, and at 1.8 minutes per mark, we should be giving ourselves about 54 minutes in the exam. For section B, on the other hand, we've got 3 case-style questions, and these again are objective test questions, or you might see in your books OTQs. Again, 2 marks each on there, you've got 5 of those. So for each of the actual case styles on there, you've got 3 of them, 10 marks each. So 30 marks for section B, 1.8 minutes per mark, so again, 54 minutes that we'd have to use. Finally, and by far and away not the least, we have section C. Now, we have 2 scenario-based questions, both 20 marks each, so you've got 40 marks there, and that equates to 72 minutes overall. So that is the sort of bog standard breakdown that you might see on the textbooks and all that sort of stuff online that, you know, you just sort of start off with section A, then on to B, then on to C, exam finished, submit, off you pop, and that's it. But yes, you now ask me, James, what would you do if you were in my situation? And obviously with the fun of a PM exam, this is what I would be doing. Well, going through and actually implementing this is one thing, but it's gonna come with loads of question practice and doing them to time before the actual exam, okay? So there is a caveat to my madness, but I'd be putting in the hours before the actual exam, and we'll come on to this later on in the video, so make sure you hang around for that as well. Don't leave early, and especially not in the PM exam. But first of all, what would I do? And I'll put you a breakdown up here for you as well. First of all, I'm going to start off by spending 30 minutes on section A, and the reason for this, why I'd start off in section A, is I'm going to be fully focused, full of energy, and this is when, if I actually don't know any of the questions within that half an hour, I'm going to flag them on the actual computer-based exam system, because we're going to come and revisit them later. And then the reason as well for the actual 30 minutes is you can actually keep a track of it on the clock, because lots of people in this exam, and the external examiner mentions it lots of times as well, they lose track of time and they miss out on some of the requirements later on. So first of all, the first half an hour on there, section A, because there are just, if you just misread a section A question, you can maybe misinterpret it, select the wrong answer, and these tend to be in section A the easier marks to pick up. So I'm already thinking to myself, well, if the easy marks are there, I'm going to go at it where I know people make silly mistakes in them. I'm going to be fully focused, laser-eyed on there, and what that means is I'm going to take half an hour now, and we're going to come revisit it back in a moment. So first half an hour, section A. Then, after that, I'm going to go on to section B, where when I go on to section B, I would then spend, again, another half an hour, keeping it nice and easy for myself. And I know what you're thinking, James, that doesn't sound like a lot of time. Well, it's giving you an opportunity to get stuck into the exam, but it's just to sort of go from the section A mindset now to the section B mindset, where we're going to have more information to actually digest and get stuck into, with it being on a case-by-case basis. So in other words, you've got 3 cases, just spend 10 minutes each on them, going through, attempting as much as you can, and then trying to understand as much as you can on there. But again, it's going to come with question practice on this before the exam. So now in the exam, we are 1 hour in, okay? And ignore my 2 ones there, 1 hour in. Now, what I want you to do next, or what I would be doing definitely, is spending 1 hour completely on section C right now. So that after that 1 hour there of section C, at this point in the exam, I'm 2 hours through with 1 hour to go. And at this point, I'm going to have a really good feeling as to how I'm getting on in the exam. How's it really sort of going? Yes, I'll have really pushed myself, but psychologically from that as well, I can say to myself, well, I've had a real good go so far. I'm pretty sure I've picked up marks all the way through. I've got 1 hour now to get stuck back in again, and this is where it's won or loss on it now. So it's where the question practice, the time management comes back into play. I'm now transitioning back from just finishing section C. I'd have a sip of water, deep breath, clear my mind, refocus myself, because I'm going to return back to section A for 15 minutes. Again, nice and easy to keep an eye on the clock on that. Make sure you have an answer for all the questions down there, because you won't be coming back again. And the reason for this is we're now pinching 9 minutes from section A. So as we said at the start, you'd have 54 minutes to complete it. I'm only giving myself 45 minutes because I know section A is the easiest out of the whole exam. So I want to reallocate that actual 9 minutes to other areas. And then this is where you've got to go into section A at this point, questioning that you have made a silly mistake and you're going to pick up on it. We'll be talking about other insights later on into this video, but I'd be just going through it saying to myself, I know I've not got all the section A multiple choice questions right. I'm going to go through it, really have a look at some of my calculations, check the units as well, all these different things. And trust me, that could be a little difference in picking up another few marks from that. Then after that, so we've now got 45 minutes left in the exam, I'm then going to go back onto section B, which in terms of hardness, and again this is from my opinion, section A is the easiest, then section B is the next hardest, and then C is definitely the hardest after that. So again, make your own judgment on this, but I'm just going to try to keep it easy, is that for section B, I'm going to allocate 20 minutes on this now, again to review my work, attempt any of those flagged areas that I need an answer down for, and then this is where here we have section A and section B. This is why it's really, really important. They are marked by the computer, by the system. So as I'm going through section A and section B, I'm thinking units, I'm thinking format, I'm thinking decimals. These are all key, and we're going to be talking about it later that if I've not asked for it in the particular format that they're looking for, maybe it's decimal places, I'm not going to get the marks. So I've got to be spot on. I will have made mistakes. And again, I've said 20 minutes here. You could reduce it to 15 and then allocate 30 for section C. It's completely up to you. You can judge it how you're getting on in the exam yourself. And then finally on there, again, I'll just stick to my figures as we go through. The final push now, back onto section C for the final 25 minutes to answer any final requirements as you go through. And this is the key thing here, that section C is marked by a person, an actual ACCA qualified marker. So in other words, I'm thinking I've got to get down and show as many workings as possible. I'm working to the last second on there as well. I'm getting down as much narrative, explaining, I'm reviewing all the requirements to say, have I used some of the key words in there? And finally, have I put down as many workings to get own figure marks and carry forward marks as well? So in other words, if I made a mistake at the top of the calculation, it would then follow through and I'd still pick up marks on it. So just working to the last second, and it gives you an opportunity this way that you're reviewing your actual work as you go through, especially section A and B, where you are going, I'd even admit it to myself, I'm going to make silly mistakes on it. It's the exam pressure, it's definitely going to happen, but then by giving yourself that second attempt at it, trust me, if you implement that, you will find mistakes, and that's where we just get those marks, just ticking away, and it's going to get you to that 50 plus. So yes, it is a tough approach. I'm trying to base it out easily so that I can follow the clock, so that I get better at my time management. But it's designed, as we said, to give you that opportunity to review your answers, pick up on those silly mistakes, and the key final thing for this tip is that you're going to answer all 100 marks. You're not going to answer, say, 80 or 85, because then you're just throwing 15 away or 10 or however it may be. That is the key thing. I want to give myself the best opportunity to get the 50 pass by attempting the whole 100 marks. And they say it all the time in the external examiner's report, students do not complete this paper. So that is tip number 1, the exam time strategy that I'd be implementing if I was in your shoes. And I know what you're thinking, we're already off to a superb start, James. I didn't think of that. Cool. But now we're going on to tip number 2, and that is the ACCA PM Syllabus Insights now. And this is where, from my experience of tutoring on PM and going through past paper questions, what would be my insights from your sort of experience that you've already been through the syllabus and you're attempting the exam maybe for the first time? What am I thinking? What can I give you as a nugget of information? Well, firstly, and this is very, 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 very important, is for your PM exam, one of the main reasons why ACCA students fail this is because they try to question spot. And you just can't do this for the PM exam. You've got to go through the whole syllabus because you can be tested on absolutely everything in this exam. These are the sort of fundamental points from the ACCA PM syllabus that you need to be comfortable with before your exam. And what I'll do is I'll pop it up here for you so you can get it noted down as well. But these are just the sections that maybe if you're actually going through the syllabus yourself or going through practice questions, I'd have a sheet of paper labelled A to F, and you've got information technologies, systems, sorry for the peep out there, can't do anything about that, obviously. In fact, I'm going to say they're a big fan of PM. But you've got specialist costs, decision making, budgeting, performance measurement, employability and technology skills. I'd have a sheet of paper for each of them. If I'm doing a past paper question on ACCA's website and I didn't get something from it, if it linked under one of those headings, get it written down. That'd be really, really helpful so that come the night of the exam, you'll have on there 6 sheets of paper, all the things you didn't know as you were going through the question practice, all nicely collated all together on there. So what we're actually doing from here now is I actually have a full video on the whole syllabus, breaking it down on the channel, so make sure after this video you go and check it out. Again, it's just going to help you out, a different sort of learning style coming from my perspective on that. The exam also builds on your knowledge from the management accounting exam, so that's the F2 paper. So if you have failed the actual PM exam before, it would be worth revisiting or getting your notes out again, especially on the costing areas of the syllabus like activity-based costing, CVP, break-even analysis. That will really help you out revisiting those notes, and all the ones I've just mentioned are highly examinable. But speaking of exams, and hence why you're watching this video obviously, for the exam we've talked about Section A and Section B contest, and this is the key thing here. Honestly, I've been through so many past paper questions of these, and I've done online tests on them as well. For Section A and Section B, they can test you on absolutely anything on there. Whereas this is the key thing to get down in your notes. The external examiner states in their report that Section C will be focused on syllabus areas C, D and E, okay, with some elements of A on there from the information and technology. So what I'll do for you there is I'll pop them up on the screen here, where here are some of the areas that you could be tested on. And we've touched on them before, like cost, volume, profit analysis. You need to be able to prepare the different types of actual budgets, so rolling budgets on there. You've also got variance analysis, so are we in a favourable or adverse position? Mixes and yields are regularly tested, and also performance analysis. So get them jotted down from on the screen, and they're definitely going to help you out as well. Highly examinable, and the external examiner is telling you that they could come up on there because they've told you the syllabus areas to focus on for Section C. I've also linked in the actual description, we've been talking about the syllabus areas and the actual question practices. So I've put all the recommended texts in the description of this video. Check them out, they're all up to date as well. I get these questions all the time, but they'd be the actual text that I'd be using and implementing if I was in your situation. Along with the flick notes, they are really helpful. You get through loads of the syllabus really quickly. But that concludes us now for tip number 2, the actual ACCA PM syllabus insights. So you now know where to sort of focus in and what to actually expect on there. Now, coming on to more important areas, because tip number 3 is the actual PM exam tips now. I know, pen and paper at the ready. What did I have down for this? What was going through my mind? Well, from my experience, where are the common mistakes made, and how do ACCA students, like yourself, put yourself at a disadvantage? Bit of a harsh way of putting it, but it really does help me think about, well, where could I just pick up those extra little marks? And the first of all, which really staggers me when I speak to PM students, is, did you know that there is a formula sheet for your exam? Well, you may have said no. Oh gosh. Well, there is on there, okay? And there is actually this formula sheet on ACCA's website. I'll put the link in the description where you can find it. But basically on the formula sheet for your exam, there's going to be the regression analysis formulas, the learning curve formulas, and the demand curve formulas on there as well. So if I was you, before the exam, I'd make sure that I've attempted a couple of questions with all of these actual formulas applied, and so that I've seen them before. So if learning curves came up straight away, I can head to the formula, I know how to calculate it, and this really shows up a prepared student that if one of them comes up in those areas, it's banked on marks really, because you've already got the formulas, versus someone else who will probably waste a lot of time and really struggle to even get any marks on it. That's the first thing I'd be doing if I was in your shoes. Next on here, we have to talk about units and metrics, and we touched on this in tip number 1 as well. You've got to pay particular attention in Section A and B, especially as these are marked by a computer. So in other words, if you get it wrong in the wrong format, the computer will mark it wrong. Okay, so this is all sort of what we linked to above, and it comes into the time strategy as well, where you had that second opportunity to review your answers, checking it through. So be careful with decimal places that you actually ask for, or to a specific number of decimal places. Converting units on there, you also have currency that comes into it. I've also seen nearest whole number, also percentages to get down in your notes, and also thousands as well. So it might be to the nearest 1,000, and they may put 3 zeros with an S on the side. So if your answer was 1,000, all you'd have to do is put in the number 1, because you'd have 3 zeros and the S on the side. Whereas if you actually put in 1,000 as your answer, well, technically the computer would see that as 1,000,000. So just to be, and you'd get it wrong. That would be the thing. So just to be crystal clear so that you're aware, it's another thing that I'd be particularly paying attention to. Not to make silly marks, and I'm going to get the, not to make silly mistakes, sorry, so that I'm going to pick up on those easy marks. Right, next thing which was important was don't overlook section C. The PM examining team consistently say in their reports that students don't answer all of the requirements and they fail to show enough workings and narratives as you go through. So remember this as well to get noted down, that someone is going to visually look at your answer on there, whether it be on the Excel sheet or the actual worksheet on there. So showing all your workings and getting all those carried forward marks is going to be so key, because there are so many different areas that you could be tested on section C, and all it takes is to make one little mistake, whereas I'm going to get all those marks pulled forward and I don't want to miss out on any of them. So the more sort of actual comfortable and sort of practical you are with the functions of the computer-based platform, that again you can access for free on ACCA's website, along with the calculator as well from the system, I may add, with flagging questions. That is going to be really key, especially as the exam, you know, you do get tired and lethargic as you go through, and when that happens you're bound to make more mistakes. And plus, we don't want you wasting time in your exam trying to operate it, navigate the system. The more practice you do, and this is what I'll be thinking, the better off you're going to be. So log on to ACCA's actual practice platform, try as many computer-based exams as possible, and I've done you a couple of videos on this, so make sure you go and check them out. They're going to be super duper helpful. I've walked and talked you through what I was thinking at that point in time, and then you can stop the video, answer it yourself, then hear it through. It's really helpful, and again, what I'd be doing if I was in your shoes. So that is tip number 3 there, PM exam tips. Now, this is the best one now. Pay attention on this. Tip number 4 now, James's PM hacks. I've called this one on here. I mean, very inventive. But in other words, this section now is, what would I be thinking for some final nuggets of gold and PM gold on there to get you over the line? That could be the difference in you getting those final little marks in your exam that push you from, and I'm sure people watching this maybe were on 47, 48, the dreaded 49, that could get you into that 50, 51 plus. Yes, we've talked about covering all the syllabus on here, but psychologically going into the exam, and this is just from my opinion, I would be going in thinking, yes, anything on the exam could be covered, but there will be things within this exam that I won't know, okay? And there will be elements that, yes, even if I've been through the whole syllabus, there will still be things that come up, I go, I'm really not sure about that. But this is where you have to get your expectations in line, that you actually say the syllabus is so vast and questions can be worded in a sort of funny manner or sort of specific, and especially under the exam pressure, well, you sometimes just have to hold your hands up and say, I really kind of don't get that, or I don't quite follow it on there. So I'm already expecting that if I'm going to sit the exam, whichever section it may be, most likely in section A. So just use your professional judgment on there and don't panic on it, because you won't panic because you're already expecting it to be. If you've already done all the exam past paper questions, you've been through the syllabus, and you say, look, there's bound to be 1 or 2, but I'm going to try and break it down bit by bit, use my professional judgment, and at the end of the day, if there are 4 answers on there, I've got a 1 in 4 chance, I nearly said 1 in 5 there, but of actually getting it right. But then coming on to the individual sections now, so section A on here, when I'm reading the questions, okay, as I've had practice doing these myself, I always think to myself, where are the outliers or sort of the distractors, as they're also known, in the actual answers that simply can't be right? So you might get in one of your questions A to D, and you read it through and you go, D cannot be right. That has nothing to do with CVP analysis. So again, this comes to actually using your professional judgment to eliminate the answers that can't possibly be correct. I'm increasing the chances of me getting it right. And in order to pass the exam, you need to be doing as many questions at a time, as it was as if it was a real exam, so that you get better with this strategy, that when you do them in practice, you look through it and you review your answer to what they got, and you look at some of the answers and go, there was no way that could have been right for there. And you'll get better at this and you'll start to apply it in the exam. So reviewing your answers where you actually went wrong, particularly for section A, I always recommend this, is that go through the answers, and then if you did get it wrong, actually write it down and say, why did I get it wrong? And then reference it in your notes to say it relates to this particular area of the syllabus. Maybe it's costing, or maybe it's budgets on there. So section A, I would really use these questions, and from a study perspective as well, because I'm always saying, you've got to do it to time, but sometimes you just need to mix it up. And section A questions, you can read it through, talk it out loud, add some variety into it, walk and talk it through. Right, I think the answer is A on this one because, okay, right, okay, off we go, off to look at the answer. The answer was B. Right, why did I get that wrong? Okay, pen and paper, need to write that down. Your learning curve is going to be so much higher. Collating those actual answers all together is going to be a massive difference on there. Plus, as we said, section A, if you get it wrong, you get it wrong on there, I'm afraid. And if you get a dodgy section A, it can really spoil your whole exam. Section B and section C need to be done to time, in my eyes, okay? Completing past paper questions as much as possible. The more section B and section C questions you do, the better off you're going to be. And to time, that is one of the key things. And what I have got on the channel is, if you check out this video up here, this is designed for 10 markers, such as section B in this exam. It's to hold yourself accountable. It's a lovely study with me video, 18 minutes on the clock. You can pop it on, you hit go, and then off you pop. I've got to do the question right now. Really, really helpful. And loads of students who have tried that have found it very beneficial and passed their exam. So I just wanted to share with you for that. It's on the channel. Feel free to check it out. But that study video, as I said, will hold you accountable. And section B, I actually tend to find is always about really understanding the actual real details and referring to those little mistakes that, because it's again marked by a computer, it's going to come down to the details. You're going to see more numbers in section B, and it's just understanding them, working them through, and having that second check on them is going to be really key. But the more section B questions you do to time, the better off you're going to be focusing in on that. But we come on now to section C for some final insights, because section C is the hardest. And you're telling me now, I can hear you through the screen just going, James, I don't like section C. Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to pass section C to get you through the exam. But what would I be implementing if I was in your shoes on here? Well, this is not anything official, but there are going to be narrative questions, so written questions within section C, and also numerical questions. But I'm already thinking to myself, right, where are the easy marks? And this is sort of a where are the easy marks strategy. So if I move on to section C after an hour in the exam, I'm reading through the requirement, I'm already thinking, right, where are the easy marks? And accept, yes, that to get the higher marks on this, you do need to apply your answers back to the scenario. That is one of the fundamental areas to passing section C, to get down in your notes. But there are always in the PM exam for F5 phrases and professional statements that the markers like to see, and they will enhance your answer, okay? And this is where if you actually want to implement in your answer these sort of keywords and phrases, like when we're talking about variances being in an adverse or favourable situation, internal and external stakeholders come up on the majority of papers, and their impact as well, because you have to state and explain why. Ethical areas, so would this put the actual accounting profession into question? Controllable and non-controllable. There are so many different factors on this. If you haven't already, check out a couple of the other my specific PM videos where I underline them in the syllabus that I've put on the channel as well. There are loads on there, but just for a bit of a flavour for this video, other key terms when analysing and explaining your answers that you need to implement, words I'd be using if I was in your shoes are effective. So are we in a more effective or worse off position? Are we more efficient? Are we more productive? Have we reduced wastage? Have we maybe streamlined the process? All keywords, but the final nail on the head for section C for any narrative question is you have to say why. But Jo, who I did a video with as well, she's one of the tutors on there, we were talking about this, and it's just one of the areas the external examiner says it all the time as well. Students 4 PM do not explain or discuss or analyse. This is one of the reasons, especially in section C, because that's where you're going to be writing your answer and it will be marked, but you need to be more clear and concise and relate it back to the requirement. Try to pick up on any key words within the requirement. Performance is usually a key one on there. I've seen cash flow, operations as well, and then use those key words in your answer. It will really guide your answer on there. Also, maybe even writing down the actual name of the company, the person, which also will definitely help. Section C, I know, deep breath, with your workings. This is another key strategy that I'd be implementing, is to do your workings at the top of your answer sheet or on Excel, okay, that you have on there for the worksheet at the start of the answer. So this is to save you time having to go back to the scenario, then back to your answer, back to your calculations, then writing it down. Do the calculations at the top from when you've analysed the scenario. So in other words, you read the requirement, you go through the scenario, you start to do your workings, then you refer back to your answer sheet and start writing it down. It's designed so that you have more focus from one task to another, and so you're not going from one back to another. And also when you read the requirement, see if you can actually find if there's anything linking back to the scenario, or if it's just a case of, are we wanting a scenario-based answer, which is the majority, but then there'll be other marks in section C for just general PM knowledge. And if it's PM knowledge and I'm there in the exam, I'm writing it down straight away before I even go to the actual scenario. So in other words, just to break that down, you go through the requirement first of all, you read it through, and you say part A relates back to the scenario, part B is more scenario, and then maybe part C might be more sort of factual based, PM syllabus based. Right, let's get down some key things on there that are fresh in my mind straight away, and then I go through it, because those little lines getting down could be 1 or 2 marks straight away in the bank on there. Plus, when you go through the scenario, you see anything else, just add it on the bottom, that's it. So when you're actually reviewing, we talked about it there, the section C scenarios, this is another thing that they do in all the past paper questions. Look for anything in bold, okay? These are the key points that the marker wants you to pick up on, and you can actually refer to in specific requirements. So I've seen it before where you start to go through the scenario, and then the bottom third, it says, this part here refers to section C. You're already aligning your mind to say, really not much, if anything above is relating to section C. Again, you won't be marked down for it, but that point, that area there goes such a long way to help you out as you go through it. And finally, any sort of data, tables, graphs provided to you in that scenario, just think to yourself on there, how can I apply them to the actual requirements overall? And say to yourself, the marker wouldn't put the data and the graphs and the figures on there if they didn't want you to use them. So that's where that second bit of going through section C at the end for that 25 minutes comes into it, that you look through your first answer attempt in the first hour and go, I've really not referred to them as much, but having that bit of time at the end can be the difference just to get you those final little marks over the edge. So we're taking a bit of time away from section A and potentially a tiny bit from section B, but we're allocating it to section C, where I know it's more difficult and you need a bit more time to analyse that scenario and get the bigger marks down on there. I do actually have a course which I've linked below. If you're really struggling on this, you can actually access some of my notes, goes through a full section C question on there, really helpful, with a couple of other videos, so feel free to check it out. It shows you through my sort of approach for a section C, and you also got a taster of another one on the actual channel as well. So yeah, check it out, links below. It's proper stuff, it's all good. And breathe. So that is tip number 4 on there. James's PM hacks, which again, I really hope going through those lovely little tips from start to finish, you've got plenty of notes. If you have found today's video helpful, which I really hope you have, I'd really appreciate it if you gave the video a massive like and thumbs up below. As ever, thank you so much for the support, but if you know any other ACCA students who have got this exam, be sure to share it with them along with the channel details so they get access to all my free materials. And if you'd like access to all my new videos, all you need to do is subscribe and hit the button below, and feel free to leave a comment of what you thought of the video, how you got on with your exam, any other requests you have. More than happy to help on that. Well, one of the last things I can just say is, because your exam may be tomorrow, it might be next week when you're watching this, I just want to wish you all the best of luck with your PM exam and your accounting journey. I hope all the videos on the channel that we've talked about today really help you out. As a final treat, what I've done for you is as well, I've left a couple of videos at the end. If you click one of them, they're definitely going to help and could be that little extra mark or two to help you pass your upcoming PM exam. That is the real end goal. But on that bombshell, I'll see you next time. Cheers!